Yeah, okay. Hello.
Hello.
I turned down the pre thing.
Hey, Mason.
Oh.
God, it has been half a year, hasn't it?
Hey, thank you, Mason. Let's see. Thank you for the subscription. I didn't realize what subscription that was. I didn't recognize that noise.
The Dutchman's Treasure?
Hey, what's up, Miss Melee? No, I didn't remember what I had actually set it for.
Weird to see Miss Melee here. Hi. This is a guy from the webcomics Discord.
So I'm hoping you guys can hear us, right? Like, obviously. I hope we're not too loud.
You're gonna get Pokemon rants.
Yeah, you're gonna get Pokemon rants.
Josh was just on it for like a solid like 20 minutes before we started this, and I kept being like, "Well, we should save this."
Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me make sure that I don't have something set up wrong. Hold up.
Yep, doing some technical cranking.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I accidentally clicked a dial when I got up too. So I gotta make sure everything's set right.
Yeah, I don't hear anything, but, I mean, this screen doesn't normally have anything on it, does it? The press a button on the controller screen.
Yeah. Hold on, let me rerun it and see if you guys can hear that. Is that the one I want? I think it is.
I don't know crap about the technical aspects of this, so Josh is on his own with this kind of thing.
Wait a minute.
MM says it's the usual Twitch stream volume for me, where I have to jack the volume up 8 or 9 times its normal levels, but that's 99% of Twitch streamers. Huh. I don't know. That might be on your end. What's going on?
I don't know. It won't let me go in and change things, so I can't rerun it. I keep doing the dumb thing. Hold on. Let's just, I'm going to hope that this is correct and that this is the level that it needs to be. We'll see.
Let's find out when there's actual music playing. We'll have a better contrast.
Yeah, you know what? Good point. So here's the thing. I accidentally clicked some of the volume sliders because the way that OBS works, if you go into the volume and you use your mouse wheel, like if you were trying to move up and down, it moves the volume sliders instead. And then you can't undo that action. Okay, all right. Okay, here we are. Everything should be fine. I'm going to click a button. We're going to let this begin, potentially.
Last time we played this game, we, caught a seal and didn't do anything with it.
Well, I've had it in a Pokeball this entire time.
Have you been playing with it?
Yeah, every so often.
Okay.
Confirm.
Yeah, I'm hearing little blips, but they're very faint.
Well, we'll see how faint it is when the actual music comes in. We'll figure this out.
Yeah.
Presented by Game Freak. Okay.
Okay, it's sounding
it sounds
for
better.
us.
Yeah.
How
does it sound for you guys?
Are we soundable?
Yeah, are we audible? Hey, listen, man. Are we audible over everything else? Is the music too loud? Is it not loud enough? Is it, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh
yeah. God, I forgot the thing did that.
Yeah, Pokeball Plus is audible.
The game is a little loud? Okay. That's something I was worried about, because that was one of the ones that I accidentally touched. Give me a second and I'll turn it down.
Here I am. Since the last time we've played this, we had been having Joy-Con issues when we were trying to use them for Smash, but we're not sure which stick was the one having issues, if it was, I never really decided to isolate which part of it is, so I'm using one of the Joy-Cons, Josh is using the Pokeball Plus. I might at some point start wigging out, and it might just be that my stick is not working.
So can you guys, is the music too loud or too quiet? Is it just right? Yeah, we're having the drift, by the way. That is actually what's going on.
Is that what they call it?
That's what they've started calling it, because it's become such an issue with Switches lately. Especially some of the early ones have drift issues.
Ours wouldn't have been first wave, but it's decently early. The first year since they launched?
It was within the first year, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So,
this is the Seafoam Islands.
yeah,
we
this
were
is
going
Seafoam
to...
Islands. I'm trying to remember where the hell we are and what we were doing.
We were going to go do some gyms. Go ahead and look at our trainer card so we can figure it out.
Yeah.
But we weren't doing gyms last time because we had just been spending a whole bunch of time catching things. So it was like, well, we don't want to like have this low-key nothing's happening stream end with something.
Oh, God.
It's Busters.
Oh, God. This isn't what I wanted to do. Okay, I'm trying to remember the controls now. Because this game's weird. This game's weird, yeah.
They're simple controls, except you're using an orb.
How do you go into the player card, actually? Do you remember? Is it even an option? Is it in the bag for some strange reason?
I don't remember.
I'm not seeing it in the bag.
I mean, there's a different start menu,
too. Is it a Pokédex?
No.
No? Why would it be in there? Why did I even think it would be in there? It might be under the save function. Yeah, there it is.
There we go.
So we don't have Koga, we don't have Sabrina, we don't have Blaine, and we don't have Giovanni. So I guess we could just start checking those off. That's not that hard, honestly.
Because we're clearly going to be fine. And we're cheating by using co-op. We've got double battles all the time. Who do we got in my slot, by the way?
In what?
In my second party. Who am I using?
You have Seal right now.
Okay.
But we can change that.
Okay. Oh, are you bringing out the other Seal?
Was it a Seal in this? Because now I don't remember.
I think there was a Seal in there. Let's find out.
I think it was a Seal. Yeah.
So we're eventually going to start talking about Sword and Shield and E3 and a bunch of other things. But right now we're just figuring out, oh God, we're old. How do we play a video game? It was 41 when we put it in here.
Yeah, it was 41 when it went in, and we've had it in here for months while we've not been playing this game. It gained 51,000 experience.
There you go, Seal.
I guess we'll see what level this one's at. Only 49? Really?
I mean...
Wow, I guess maybe I wasn't shaking it enough lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Still gonna mash through all this.
Yeah.
Ooh, Ice
Wants
Beam.
to learn Ice Beam.
I believe that someone, last time we did this, said that we need to name this seal, who was a very large seal.
Yeah.
This is a big girl. Someone wanted to name her Latrice. Which I guess...
Aurora Beam is... Okay, so its category is power as opposed to... Is this special? No, they're both power. Okay. And then 90 versus 65... Okay, wait a minute. 65 versus 90, and accuracy is 100 on both? Does Aurora Beam freeze more often?
I don't know.
Wait... it lowers the target's attack stat.
That's less interesting than
I
freezing.
don't care enough, honestly. Freezing, even if it's a 10% chance. Okay. Actually, James Mason, that's not entirely true.
You should probably start this vocal with telling the chat.
Okay.
Like,
so
telling what the chat just said.
I'll go ahead and point some things out. Alright, so... Chat says, long story short, Pokemon Sword and Shield is the first main series game that does not have all Pokemon playable. This is true. James Mason's comment is not true. Sun and Moon did that, but they patched it. That's not quite right. Here's the thing. Sun and Moon doesn't have a national dex, but you could still transfer Pokemon to it, even if you didn't have the national dex. So if as an example, Dunsparce wasn't in Sun and Moon, you could transfer Dunsparce in, you just wouldn't get Pokedex entries. In Sword and Shield, they have confirmed at like E3 that they will not offer Pokemon that are in the non-Galar region dex. So if you have a Pokemon that you want to transfer in, it ain't gonna work. Broom, I know you're doing that to play devil's advocate, but you still keep pissing me off, dude. Don't do that. Broom says, just catch new Pokemon. Broom doesn't play Pokemon, by the way. He's just doing it to make me angry.
Josh has been having this conversation with his other groups of Discord people, and then I guess they're going to come in here and troll him.
Yeah. Broom, please don't. I'm actually very angry about this.
Linkman98 also says they had heard of shady business practices at Game Freak. It's probably a whole nother thing. Kind of.
Yeah.
Game Freak and their relationship with Nintendo and Nintendo's relationship with investors.
This Dugong now
is
7'8", and it weighs 343 pounds.
I mean, that's less than you'd expect for an actual 7-foot seal, I think.
Typically, they're 5'7" and they weigh 264.
Okay, still a big girl.
It's actually almost 100 pounds heavier and 2 feet larger. It's a big-ass dugong.
Yeah, that's like the one thing that we really like from Let's Go. We've, like, complained that this game isn't a good enough Pokemon game, but it's like the size variant gives us
I
some
like that. Yeah, I think that's an
personality.
interesting concept. I'm sure that's not going to appear in Sword and Shield at all.
I mean, with the fact that just straight up giant Pokemon is going to be a thing, maybe?
No, it's not. And giant Pokemon isn't a thing. It's just
it's just
a
a
mega
gimmick.
evolution.
Dynamaxing is just the new gimmick.
Dynamaxing, by the way, has replaced Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution is no longer in Sword and Shield or anything else going forward.
MM's asking what the thickest Pokemon we've caught was. It's either the Seal or our
Cadbury?
Cadbury is a Hypno.
I think Cadbury was
big hips.
2 feet shorter than normal Hypno, but I think was just as heavy as a normal Hypno or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like, I think she was like 40 pounds heavier than a Hypno, like twice her height. It was she's just you took the sides of the screen and
here's the thing.
her.
Somebody said no Megas, no Z moves, and seemingly no Alolan forms.
That's a big mistake.
There's no Megas, there's no Z moves. They might include Alolan Pokemon, but we don't fucking know. There definitely won't be regional variants, which I thought was the coolest part of Sun and Moon. And then they underutilized it in Sun and Moon, and... Oh, you gotta hit a button. And they probably won't do it for the Galar region, and I'm really unhappy about it.
Are we gonna even get, like, Galar forms? We might not.
No, that's what I just said. No, they're definitely not gonna do it.
I'm reading chat,
it's fine.
so... I did select it.
No, you gotta double click.
Yeah, it's not confirmed because we've only seen like 5 new Pokemon, so
yeah, well,
I try to be optimistic.
I'm not.
So the thing about me though is
you actually have Tiny Chew, by the way.
Tiny Chew is the best Chew, so let's keep her there.
All right, well, I'm gonna fly to Erica. Was that the first one, or was it
Koga?
Okay.
Or Sabrina. That's kind of non-linear.
We'll go to Sabrina. Sabrina's fine. Mm-hmm. Have we even fought Team Rocket, actually? We
haven't finished them off.
I think we skipped fighting them in Saffron because it's funnier that you could get all the way through the game without fighting them.
That's true.
I
mean,
thought it was hilarious, so maybe that's what I did.
But,
I don't know.
But yeah, we're in the part of the game where it's a little more open.
Yeah, Team Rocket's still here.
My relationship with Pokemon has been a little more unusual for a while. Sometimes I get accused of being a Gen 1er. I'll just stay here, I guess.
It's up to you. Oh, goody, we get to do these voices again.
Just let us through already.
No way. Only authorized members are allowed. I was told to let no one else in.
They're not even allowed in their own base.
How can you say that when we're on the same side?
How rude! You deny a beautiful girl what she wants. Move it already. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, right. Hey, oh, that was terrible. Hey, Jesse, wait for me. There we
go. And he just spins forever. Nice of them to, like, disable the guard for us.
There's a very good chance, by the way, that we are not going to get another evolution. I'm just pointing that out right now.
Unless we get another typing.
Because we didn't get one in Sun and Moon.
If they're not adding a new type, I don't see a real reason for them to do another evolution. It would be great if they filled out some of the unused types, but I don't expect it.
I would very much like a dragon, but that ain't happening. You need that item, or... Oh. Receptionist, you there, and your ghost, which has vanished. Went a bit yeah, all right. I go a little shaggy sometimes.
Josh has a lot of voices that he's good at, and sometimes they meld together if he hasn't used one in a while.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it works.
Anyways, I keep trying. Well, you know what?
All right.
Oh wait, that's a girl.
Yeah, you can do it.
I have to tell you that our office is a bit of a disaster right now. A real disaster. Is there a garbage truck going by?
Yeah, that was indeed a garbage truck. I don't think anybody heard it, though. Okay. It's fine.
This is no place for kids, not when there are so many dangerous people around.
My heart lies with Gen 1 and 2. By Gen 3, I started getting a questionable 5. Gen 4 fully cemented that questionable
Gen
4
is the best gen.
Well, just to point out, they've never added new evolutions to odd-numbered generations. I really like Hoenn, but I get why some don't like it. Yeah.
Anyways, let's
did you read this already?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Let's get rid of this
dialogue. Aw, don't be such a stick in the mud. You won't even let us have a little look around.
Hey, it's both of them.
I feel like that it's like it's blue and then the other one rushes in.
I like how one of the things that happened when they made this game was that they wanted the rival to not be a dick, so they gave us what's his name?
and then
Jack.
Blue too.
Blue's here. Blue is a much bigger douchebag than Jack is, but they gave Jack like villain eyes. He has Team Rocket eyes, and Blue just has regular
looks like he's
eyes.
Evil, yeah.
Yeah, like they gave him like this really intense stare, but he's super nice. And then Blue over here is Gary Oak, who will smell you later, and he looks like he'd be slightly friendlier.
Yeah, true. That is correct. There's a thing where people have been catching on to this. All of the evolutions are based on what used to be the special types.
Yeah, that would make sense for them not giving us like a fighting type Eevee or whatever.
Also, oh god. Somebody's under my floorboards. Thank you for the follow, Nano Reina. Thank you. Plenty of squeaky boots under those floorboards. You're welcome to eat them if you'd like.
Because we don't need them.
We really don't. Okay, by the way... Oh, go ahead. No.
You're Blue. The Blue.
What I was going to say, though, is I don't... So this game confuses the hell out of me. Because Blue is acting like he has been here. He is an older trainer, but this is a remake of Red and Blue.
It's the Mega Evolution timeline.
It's a sliding timeline.
It's the 3D
I know
timeline.
it is. I know it is. And it's so weird that the Mega timeline apparently just bopped all of these events forward like 3 years.
Yeah, and also Mega Evolution isn't even going to really be a thing in the next game, and it's presumably in this time. Oh god, what if they make it just a Dynamax timeline and it's separate?
Yeah,
or they just
I don't
start
think so. I think it's going to
timeline.
be the same, and they're just going to be like, oh, Dynamax only exists in Galar. Because, I don't know, we're the only country with beams of light. Yeah.
It's Stonehenge. The Druids did it.
I've been looking for you. What are you doing in a place like this? I'm lucky I remember that I gave him snake voice. Well, Team Rocket, or I heard there was a takeover.
Those are like the same thing. This is sort of a remake, yeah.
It's kind of like a remake to Pokemon Yellow.
It's a spiritual sequel by way of a remake of Red and Blue.
It's weird. It's because okay, here's the thing. Yellow is just Red and Blue, but they changed the main character into somebody who gets a specific starter, which is a Pikachu. This game is basically a remake of Yellow, which is in and of itself a remake of Red and Blue, but the main character gets specifically, because there's two versions, either a Pikachu or an Eevee, except in this game, you're not like Red or Blue or Yellow. You're a new dude entirely, and your rival is someone else also.
Does this character have a default name if he's not Red? He probably does, and I just don't remember it.
His name is Let's, and the girl is Go.
Sure.
That's actually not it. I don't remember. I heard there was a takeover. No surprise. Those Team Rocket goons are causing trouble all over the place. You and me are... oh, God.
You and me are on the same wavelength, Jack.
That's a horrible voice. What's wrong with you?
I think I was using that voice in our classic Red playthrough. The one that died.
We can't keep letting Team Rocket do whatever they want. That's right. Or what do we do?
That's right. I'm the top cat.
That's right. Come on. We did a little strategy planning. So in short, the plan is this. You're going to drive Team Rocket out of Silphco just like he planned. Who planned? What?
That sure was our plan.
That was totally our plan. But it'd be crazy to try something like that alone, so Jack is going with him, Pikachu.
Who decided this?
Right.
Why aren't you doing it?
Well, you pipsqueaks do that, I'm gonna do a loop around all of Kanto, killing every Team Rocket member I find.
Why aren't we playing that game?
One of us is sure to find out where their boss is.
I like
He's here.
that. I like that. I like the idea, since Blue is eventually going to take over Viridian City Gym, the idea that he has some personal thing where he's going to just sweep out Giovanni is interesting. Could they have given us that game instead of this one?
I guess. And while I'm at it, I'll swing by the league to tell the bigwigs what's going on.
I'm gonna go tell Grandma
Awesome.
Agatha to come clean up.
Do you think the Elite Four might come to help us? Maybe. So that's the battle plan, guys. Time to split up and put it into action. If only it were that simple. Fact is, there's one more thing we gotta do here first. And then he pulls out a gun and shoots the receptionist.
No! Then I'll have no one to voice in this scene.
You two. If you want to leave this place up to if you want me to leave this place up to two newbies, then prove that you're up to the task. Oh God. What?
Oh God. He is never not intense.
I don't care who goes first. Just show me what you've got.
Oh boy. Double battle? Triple
And
battle.
the ghost is back. No, triple battles are gone forever. Don't worry about it. Okay. They went and added new moves for low-level Pokemon, so you can't...
that you can't catch at low levels in the wild.
Yeah, that's fine. This game is clearly not like past remakes. I don't know if it's true, but I really hope it was... I really hoped it was fake, and I heard a rumor that someone... Oh, God. Don't... Yeah, I'm not even going to repeat that.
Yeah, no, that
Jeez.
sounds like the kind of rumor that just
Yeah,
spreads
that does
on
sound
the internet.
fake. That, honestly... So you're my first challenger, huh?
No, and then you walk away.
That's what I like to hear. Here I go.
So anyways, before we had
vanishes.
like cutscenes, I was saying like my relationship with Pokemon has been weird for a while.
Pokemon Deft back.
I have been kind of just, which is weird because I do a Pokemon blog and I do a lot of stuff with Pokemon in general. I have kind of stepped back from the games since 5th gen. 4th gen I was really into, and you know, from first onward I've just been, it's the experience a lot of us have where it's like, oh, you were 10 years old and the games came out and it was your whole life at 10 years old and it kept going and you kept sticking with it. It's like, yeah, that was me. And then when we started getting stuff about 5th gen, it was at a point in our lives where it's like, I didn't have the time to really care as much.
Yeah.
In part because it was like, oh, we were adults now, we had to be in our own place, I had to have a job, we had to pay rent and all this other stuff, and there's a lot of various stresses. But then also, they replaced the entire Pokedex for 5th gen with a bunch of redundant designs, and it was like, I kind of don't care. I kind of don't like these. The animated sprites looked really janky. A lot of the features in it felt like they had ideas they didn't get to fully...
Tiny Chew.
What the fuck? Well,
It's your
like,
choice.
it's not letting me.
Oh yeah, who do you
Stella.
want? Okay.
Yeah, give me Stella.
Alright, working on it.
Named after the sexy goose from Balto 3.
Yeah, okay, so what? Continue your story, I'm sorry.
I have been kind of detached from Pokemon for a while now, since 5th gen. Like, I wasn't really into it. I didn't even play 5th gen until 6th gen was already out, and I still haven't played 6th or 7th gen. So I just kind of have been detached, and it's like, we're getting information now where it's like, oh, you can't trade up everything you have into the new region because it only allows in things that are in its own regional dex. It's like, well, then I guess it's fine that I never bothered gathering everything up from 3rd to 4th to 5th, and that I never played 6th or 7th because, well, they can just sit in my DS cartridges. Yay, Stella. We love you. Level 37, that's still... What level was Gary's stuff at? Excuse me,
It was
Blue.
38.
Okay, so I'm a little under level.
Yeah.
But our Arcanine is doing fine. Arcanine named after Fapney, so I don't think is in here right
I do
now.
not believe Fapney's is in here right now.
Hi, Deathbeck. We have a dragon and
Charizard
it's not
is-
named after you. You
He's
can be the next
fire
lizard if you want.
flying, yes?
Yes.
Okay. For a second, I
Dig
wasn't sure if
wouldn't
he
do
was
anything.
fire flying or if he was just straight fire. Some part of my brain was very confused for a minute there.
Yeah, next time we come up to like some sort of cool reptile, we gotta name it either Deft or Beck or Deft Beck.
Well, here's the thing, Ninetales. You could, okay. Ninetales said the thing was Gen 5 made you play the new Pokemon, but unlike Gen 8, you can still use the previous gen in the postgame. You could also trade up. That was always an option. The fact that you basically have a bunch of Pokemon that you can't trade up is absolutely despicable in this.
5th gen also had Dream World. You could just get random regular Pokemon. I played through most of 5th gen with a female Combee that turned into a Vespiquen, and she sweeped a bunch of the early bosses, quite frankly. It was great. That's the only thing I really liked from 5th gen was Dream World, which is dead now. So, like, I really just, like, there was one thing and I can't have it.
Somebody said, I think this is because Game Freak doesn't want Pokemon Bank crazies to immediately dominate the meta and give new players a chance to catch up. That's not true. Pokemon Bank crazies will just figure out the cookie cutter team to use in Gen 8, and then everybody's going to dominate the meta with that immediately. It's fine. It's always going to happen.
Like
there's no way to fix that.
Sun and Moon was like 90% Mimikyus, wasn't it? Which is great because Mimikyu's amazing, but like not if it's like the only thing.
Well, no, actually, no. Mimikyu wasn't really used almost at all in meta for that. Once they started getting out of, you can only use Sun and Moon Pokemon, people stopped using Mimikyu entirely. I liked Mimikyu, and it was popular at the very beginning, but it fell out of the meta super fast. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and lay all of my fucking trash on the table here, and I'm going to get really, maybe not angry, but I'm going to get really intense.
First, you're going to read the scary line.
Exactly what I'd expect from a Pallet Town trainer.
Home team pride? That's
you got
cute.
$11 for winning.
Hey, if we're from Pallet Town and he's from Pallet Town, and Pallet Town has a population of like 6 people, does that mean that like Blue was like our big brother figure? Like he was in 5th grade when we were in 1st grade or some shit?
I don't think he even lives in the town anymore because your rival's house is replaced with this guy's house instead.
Yeah, how old is he? What does our timeline actually look like?
He lives with his grandpa now. I don't know.
If he's an adult, then Red's an adult.
Oh
Where's
man,
Red?
you really are ready for Team Rocket. I feel pretty good about leaving this place in your hands. Then you're next, Jack. Come at me. I'm just getting warmed up.
Are we even gonna have to see this? No.
Jack's like, I'm so scared. Ah, jeez. Just watching your battle made me nervous.
Well, Jack,
Did you see his Pokemon's eyes? They blew me away, but I'm not backing down.
Jack is a clone of Blue.
Go on ahead. I'll be right behind you.
So the voice you're using is appropriate.
Yeah, it's Jack Snake. It's fine.
All right.
Snake Plissken. You found an X special attack.
The fountains spell out go if you cross your eyes like I just did.
Yeah, don't do that. why did you cross
Sometimes as a design thing, you kind of have to blur your eyes to look at like the general color blobs and silhouettes of things. It's like, oh, that says go.
I don't think that was intentional. And also, quit saying silhouette. That's not the word.
It is the word.
It isn't.
Why are we leaving?
I want to go heal our Pokemon. I'm pretty sure that they're still hurt.
Yeah, that's fine.
Heart Gold Soul Silver was great, by the way. That was one of the last games that they actually put as much effort as they possibly could into. So here's what I don't like. Game Freak, and a lot of people have been saying, don't call it laziness, it's not laziness. Game Freak has been kind of lazy as of the last few generations. And it's not really their fault, except it is. Here's the first thing. The first thing I want to lay on the table here. I have been wrong for years about this. I thought Pokemon was a joint IP. I thought it was an IP that was owned partially by Game Freak and also partially by Nintendo. I have been wrong about that for years. I found out today that Pokemon is 100% owned by Nintendo. Game Freak doesn't own any amount of the IP, apparently.
Something's being pointed out. Pokemon Company owns Pokemon, and then Nintendo owns the Pokemon Company.
Yeah.
Basically, though, the Game Freak as a group of dudes at a computer do not have control over the IP.
So, on top of that, technically, at any time, because of that, Nintendo could have decided that they just wanted to drop Game Freak entirely. They have not this entire time, and it was never really an option. Well, it was never really brought up. It was never a concern when Iwata was in charge of Nintendo, because Iwata's a great guy, and he knows better than to drop the dev studio for the... Can we just go anywhere? Wait. Yes, we can. Even in the original one, we could go anywhere. Okay.
Yeah, but there's, like, teleport
yeah,
pads
there's teleport pads and stuff like that. Game Freak... Okay, Nintendo at any time could have dropped Game Freak if they had wanted to.
Is this a teleport pad?
Yes,
now?
it is.
Okay.
Iwata didn't want to because Iwata's a nice person. After Iwata's death, and even close to when he died, there was the idea brought up that Game Freak could be replaced because Nintendo bought up Niantic in order to do mobile games, which is what their investors had been asking them to do for decades, and Iwata had been fighting the entire time. So when they put out Pokemon Go, and they put out the first year's gross income, the income that Game Freak had made off of the games for Pokemon for the 2 generations leading up to that was about $16 million. That's gross. That's covering all of your deficits, everything that you use to pay people. Yeah, that's your net gain after you divvy it up and send it to the people who also need it, and you pay off like marketing and things like that. And Niantic's Pokemon Go gross net income was $144 million. It was more than almost any Pokemon game had ever made in 26 years. Like, together. It was unreasonably large, and that's because Niantic made a shit game with microtransactions that made a lot of money, because people are willing to do that. When Game Freak saw the writing on the wall, they realized that they could be replaced at any time by new Nintendo, because Iwata is no longer there as a safety net, who's a good person, willing to, do things. And as a result, Game Freak kind of flipped out. So they started producing other things, because they know that if they get replaced at any time, they can only survive if they have another IP that is comparable in size to Pokemon, because they can barely survive with just Pokemon. So they started doing things like Harmonite, which is a pretty good game.
Just pointing out Drill Dozer is Game Freak.
Drill Dozer is a good game as well. They used to make games that weren't just Pokemon, but they did start... Here's the thing, though. Have you noticed that they haven't made another Drill Dozer?
They haven't made a Pulse Man?
They haven't made a Pulse Man. If they were really smart, they would have done an HD re-release of Pulse Man at some point. They didn't. Pulse Man is arguably one of the best games outside of Pokemon that Game Freak has ever done.
I've never played it.
It's good. It's a Mega Man clone. They also did... There's a handful of puzzle games they did as well. Hold on, I'm drinking a Red Bull. Give me a second.
A regular Red Red Bull. None of the weird soaps. There's no gimmick this time.
Yeah, we didn't pick up anything weird.
Well, we got some Mountain Dew Amp Gamer Fuels, but that's not really weird. I know what that's going to taste like going in. Probably.
So, yeah, by the way, somebody mentioned Tajiri. Tajiri is still alive. He just doesn't do anything. He hasn't done anything with Pokemon since 3rd gen. I think the official explanation is that he left for his family, but I think people have done interviews with him, even though he's kind of a mysterious individual. And it's like, he still technically, holds a position of power in their company. But if I remember correctly, I think he was, disgusted with Pokemon after 2nd gen. He felt like it had gone so far outside of what his vision was that he just didn't want to be a part of it anymore, and that's fair. If we take Gen 1 as being what he wanted Pokemon to be...
He was done. He didn't need to keep
oops, sorry. He made Gen 2, then when we hit about Gen 3 and he's no longer the director and it's Masuda, then it kind of makes sense that he'd look at it and be like, this is going too far, I'm out, and just bounce.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily worried about, the original guys maintaining the original spirit of the game, except that they're phoning it in now because they don't want anyone else to have it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So they're basically, they continue to make Pokemon games because if they don't make Pokemon games, they go bankrupt. That's how Game Freak is right now. Simultaneously, they're doing bare minimum to continue to make games that exist and are quote-unquote good, while they try and hit it with a different game. So one of the things that has been pointed out, and was pointed out a couple of months ago, is that currently Game Freak is split because they're producing 2 games. They've got Sword and Shield, and they've got another game that's current working title is just Towns. Towns has almost 80% of Game Freak's entire staff working on it, which is why James Turner is in charge of Sword and Shield's art, and Sugimori is in charge of the art of Towns.
How did that guy even get into Game Freak?
I don't know, because he's Canadian. You'd think that they'd have a problem
British,
with it. Because here's the other thing, right?
UK-ish.
I don't know what he's actually.
He's got an accent.
He does, but I think he's Canadian. Yeah, by the way, for those of you who didn't know, James Turner is in charge of the art for Sword.
The guy behind the ice cream cone is like in charge now.
Yeah, that's the one everyone remembers.
Of the art direction. Anyways.
You're the
excuse me?
It's okay. So yeah, he has actually been around since Gen 3. It's fair. Here's the thing though. Sugimori is currently on Towns. He's no longer the art director for Pokemon for this generation, and James Turner is, because James Turner basically has a significantly smaller staff working on this, and that might be part of the reason why they're like, we can't, do enough to get this stuff working. And people would argue, well, why is it that Game Freak isn't just hiring more staff? And that's totally an option that they're choosing not to do, because they do this thing, and I hate this, that Japanese companies do, where they refuse to hire more people.
Are we just leaving this guy to watch
Yeah,
TV?
for now. I'm just going to get this Pokeball. It has nothing to do with the amount of money that they have, right? It's not like, oh, we can't afford to hire more people. It's, we don't want to hire more people. It's, we choose not to hire more people. And I'm just looking at that and I'm like, you've cut the money. Why?
Yeah,
no kids are allowed here. Yeah,
it's
right?
Like, they got, like, a British guy to do the game that's in, like, an England analog. It's like, fuck you guys for not, like... No one from Hawaii was put on the team for Alola. What were they? Was anyone from New York put on for Unova? It's not really. It doesn't really matter, except that now it kind of looks like there could have been a pattern. It's like, why didn't you hire me when you wanted to make a game about Hawaii? I grew up there.
Oh, because you didn't apply.
How do you even? They don't even let you do that. You
can apply to Game Freak. You can go onto their website and you can apply to Game Freak. You are actually allowed to. People apply to Game Freak all the time, and this actually. This brings a part of thing. Oh, what part of Hawaii? Somebody's curious.
I'm from Oahu. I grew up near Honolulu. Like, I could see Pearl Harbor from my window, basically.
One of the things that oh god, I forgot what I was saying. What were we talking about?
We were talking about how they didn't come to my house and give me money for no reason.
So you can get hired by Game Freak if you put in an application. The issue is that you probably can't get hired unless you know somebody in the industry, but there is a chance that if you're a good enough artist, they will just pick you up. The thing is, if you were hired by Game Freak, or if you put in an application to resume and they call you in for an interview, one of the things that people have been saying is that you can actually, if you go in and do an interview, the last question that they ask you, and that they have been asking people for like 5-6 years now, is if you could make a game that wasn't Pokemon with Game Freak, what would the game be? And they ask you for the whole spiel of the game, and that was like a weird turning point where people started wondering if Game Freak was interested in not doing Pokemon anymore. And that's basically what it's turned into now. Is like, Game Freak is done. Game Freak doesn't want to do Pokemon because Pokemon is something that leaves them open and able to be replaced. So they're just going to not do it, or they're going to do bare minimum until they either get replaced or they, I don't know, get more money for some strange reason. Because they can do bare minimum and people still eat it. That's the problem. That's part of the issue here.
Yeah, we're probably going to buy it. Deft is asking, did I play a ton of the illegal DDR cabinets in Hawaii? Like, I don't play DDR, so I wouldn't have even noticed if they were illegal cabinets. We once wandered into an arcade that turned out to be an illegal casino, though.
That was fun.
Because gambling's not legal in Hawaii, but you've got, like, the kind of back room. Well, there's video poker, but you give tickets. Okay.
Thank you.
We didn't play it though.
I clicked play rough, and I wasn't even thinking about fairy versus poison.
Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting that.
You'd think they would try harder to not be replaced, but it's one of those things where instead of trying harder to not be replaced, they're trying to found a franchise that they have more faith in, that they have all of the rights for the IP for. So they're trying to make a good game that can be franchised after the fact, so that they can't be replaced for that game. And then maybe if they own both franchises, Nintendo won't pull them off of Pokemon because you're too useful for other reasons.
I feel like they should be trying to just make sure it gets passed on to someone good and not turned into just mobile game hell. I think that's my biggest problem, is that mobile market and Nintendo just they're like oil and water. Like, I find it disgusting to mix the two.
Yeah.
Like, I play mobile games. It's just like,
kid,
they're a
what
different.
Are you wandering here for?
They're a different format with different needs, and the Nintendo's wasting resources on it is just always bothered me.
It's so. Here's the best way somebody described this to me. It's if there was a huge legal battle for whatever reason, and this isn't going to happen. This is impossible. If there was a huge legal battle where Nintendo and Game Freak in some way had a fight in a court, and the court ruling was that Pokemon could never exist again, Nintendo would be fine, and Game Freak would go out of business. That's the best way to describe it. It's Game Freak needs Pokemon to exist, but they don't want that to be the only thing they have. But if they do bare minimum, they know that Nintendo will still be happy because it's still going to make Nintendo money. Because the only kind of money that Game Freak makes off of Pokemon is for the game sales and some, not even all, some of the merchandising. Pokemon as a franchise makes a fuck ton of money, but Game Freak doesn't pick up as much as you'd expect. Nintendo picks up most of that money, and Nintendo makes bank off of Pokemon nonstop anyway.
You think if they had more money, they'd make better games, though?
Probably
I'm not. Sure.
Honestly, there's a lot of weird, like, tired, almost. I'm not gonna call them lazy. Like, I struggle to use that word because I worry that it's not really laziness at the end of the day. Like, it could be. It very well could be, but it feels like it's more a we're done and just trying to save ourselves as best we can.
Chat's talking about how Pokemon Go was kind of a fluke and that they were kind of lucky, and
yeah, they were very lucky.
The Wii had the casual gaming market before modern smartphones. Now it's a completely different thing because casual gaming is just everyone has it in their pocket now. Deathback pointing out there's like 8 Pokemon knockoffs coming out on Steam and mobile every month. Yeah. Honestly, sometimes those are good. Or good enough. I always appreciate...
has taken us over. I guess this is the end for us.
I always appreciate when someone wants to try
and... my best friend get shot. Sorry.
I always appreciate finishing my sentences. I always appreciate when... Where am I? I don't know.
You're there.
I am one of the 4 Rocket Sisters.
Oh no.
Anyways, when there's like competition on the market, when some amateur tries to put up a thing that's like inspired by their favorites but doing their own things, like I like that. I don't like monopolies, even though I've been with Pokemon since the beginning. It doesn't have to be the only one doing what it does, and that's cool. It's just none of them ever hit it off. And if Pokemon's going to dominate the market, it's better at least just continue being good. Like, that's the thing, is like, Pokemon, Nintendo in general is one of the few big companies I am willing to, like, just sort of still submit some loyalty to, so long as they keep making everything good. That's why I try to be optimistic. Like, with the whole thing where Pokemon Home is just going to be a prison for all the Pokemon that can't get into the UK because
I
Brexit.
Even started on Pokemon Home.
I'm trying to be optimistic that, hey, maybe if they're going to keep releasing shitty mobile games that tie into it, then we can use the other Pokemon there. One of the things that's happening is that Pokemon Sleep, and I still don't know what the fuck Pokemon Sleep is going to be, but apparently it's got a select button on it, and they've made other games that I have played, and they made that Magikarp Splash game. So it's like, they seem to have an idea of what they're doing, and they seem to care. If they're picking up mobile developers that seem to care and want to make good games, then, you know, at least we're getting good games in a shitty format. I try to be optimistic with that, and maybe if we keep getting things like that, maybe we'll finally get, like, a bunch of silly extra games that use Pokemon no one cares about. Maybe someday we'll get an amazing full RPG on mobile for, like, the deep origins of Quillfish.
Oh, hey. Somebody said, hey, you see this game right now? These are the exact same models as the one in Sun and Moon. These were deemed okay for Switch. You want to know something even more depressing? People have gone through some of the frames and some of the stills from Sword and Shield, and not all of those models are brand new. Even though that was an argument that they were making for a little bit about why it is that this game doesn't have the national decks, turns out there may have been a lot of lying going on, because actually fucking Sword and Shield is still using some of the older models. They argued when X and Y came out that the reason that the models were so complex because they were ungodly complex. They argued that the reason that they were so complex is that they were future-proofing. Famously, I think it's Noirvern has a model that's like 100,000 plus polys for no reason. And people pointed out, you're causing us problems. People pointed out that part of the issue with the lag in those games, because the 3DS Pokemons had tons of lag, especially if you were in double battles. Double battles were laggy as all hell, and if you turned the 3D on, you were guaranteed lag. The reason that the game was so laggy was because they were future-proofed models, so every model on the field was 100,000 plus polys, and having too many of those at once, the game couldn't render all the data. It was freaking out. Because also, Game Freak renders their models like 8 times. I don't question it. They're like kings of spaghetti code. I don't know how or why Game Freak has never hired somebody who knows how to program properly.
Or knows how to
weird.
Program for something other than a Game Boy. We gotta be fair, they did a lot of good stuff.
Even programming in Game Boy, they still spaghetti that code real hard. Missing No is tantamount to an example of that.
Yeah, but like there's reasons that they had restrictions, and they were incredibly clever with what they did. It's just
you know the reason for Missing No existing is that somebody put down a slot where Pokemon are supposed to appear, but didn't actually assign a Pokemon to that slot. So it goes ahead and decides that the old man in Viridian is the slot for the Pokemon that it's supposed to be looking for, but there's no data for the old man in Viridian, therefore Pokemon. And it just randomly generates like a mass of pixels and data.
I think I'm gonna need to switch out of Tiny Chew. She's near death.
Yeah. So, okay. They wound up future-proofing their models. And apparently their models being future-proofed are just, it was a lie. That's not a thing. It just kind of like fell apart after that. And one of the things that people pointed out is that some of the models you needed to switch out of.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I keep going back and forth between chat.
One of the things that they pointed out was that some of the models are exactly the same. Also, the animations are no better than they used to be. In fact, with some of them, the animations are actively worse. If you go in and watch the point in the playhouse, or the treehouse playing, there are Wingles sitting over the grass where the character is walking through, and the Wingles don't flap their wings, they just sit there. Like, their wings they almost look like they're T-posed, except you get little tiny bits of motion here and there where you realize that they're not supposed to be. It's not gliding. It doesn't look like gliding. It looks like it's actively, like, standing in the air, and then as the character walks past one of them, it does a full 180 turn without moving any part of its body, and it's just like, oh no, please.
I'm gonna go through chat a little bit. Oh, there's some Digimon talk that I didn't even catch.
Digimon is consistently good, by the way.
Digimon never put down rules that would make us mad if they changed them, too.
Yeah,
every Digimon game is so different that if they do something completely deranged, I just don't care. As opposed to Pokemon, part of the appeal has been the consistency over the time.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah, it's asserting dominance against the ground. Yeah, I mean, basically.
Someone asked if we had heard of something called Temtem, which is a Pokemon knockoff. I haven't heard of that.
Is that the one that came out when people were talking about Let's Go? There was like not a Kickstarter, but a thing like Kickstarter for it, and people really liked the idea, because I remember that one, but I can't ever remember the title of it, so it would make sense if it was that.
MM saying that the female rocket grunts are less cute than in Gen 4. Sure, whatever.
I don't know or care. I don't have an opinion on that, to be honest.
I mean...
I think they're fine. Who cares?
I think all of the team grunts are kind of, like... They're kind of held... Yeah, they're held down by the fact that they all have to have, like, the same haircut, and they never seem to choose good ones. But, like, it was worse with, like, Galactic, so, like, everything's better than the bowl cut. I am one of the 4 Rocket Sisters, and I'm the oldest. That doesn't matter, our character's 10. You're old. The Treehouse video for Pokemon has 43,000 dislikes.
I'm one of the people who disliked it. I'm not surprised.
I don't bother rating things on YouTube.
I disliked it because there was a massive amount of people who were just like, hey, dislike this video. And I'm like, all right.
MM points out that in Gen 1, statues are water tiles and you can fish and surf in them. I forgot.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness in Gen 1.
Gen 1's a little strange.
But I forgive it. It's
also,
a perfect storm of what it is.
Also in Gen 1, you might want to switch. You're very
Hold on,
hurt.
why didn't we switch on the menus before
I don't know,
we entered this battle?
Because you didn't tell me.
Okay. We're trying to do chat at the same time, but you're in control of the menu.
It's okay. Also, in Gen 1, you could catch Magikarp in literally every single water tile. And if you were surfing on water tiles, the only Pokemon you could ever encounter would be Tentacruel or Tentacool.
Which made sense because, like, jellyfish do kind of float.
Yeah,
well, Manowars float.
But people forget that in Gen 1, literally the only Pokemon that you could ever run into if you were surfing was part of the Tentacool line. Just one of those two. Yeah. Tentacruel was incredibly rare, too.
Yeah. Well, it was the evolved form. It's like you don't want to run into it if you're like level 30 and it's like level 45.
Well, okay, no, I also had an opinion about it, so no, I'm not just doing what everyone else is doing. It wasn't people told me and I went, okay, I guess I'll just do it.
It's not like you saw the dislikes on a video and decided that you were one of them.
No, I saw people saying you should do this, and then I thought about it and said, yes, I should. Like, because it's the one where they announced that the National Dex isn't coming, and you can't transfer Pokemon from previous generations. Like,
I just don't yet like you it. Beat me? Yeah.
That really is just, at the end of the day, that's my biggest amount of rage. The game could be trash, and it probably will be trash.
Oh, go to the menu, please.
Yeah, sure, hold on. The game could be trash, and I'd still be fine with it as long as I could have all my Pokemon in one place.
Which technically you can, but it's home, which you have to pay for.
Yeah, well,
I'm
not into paying for things.
I mean, they haven't announced how that's going to work, but it's almost definitely a subscription.
Here's the thing. Who do you want to switch with?
Let's just say Dugong.
Okay. Here's the thing. They've never not charged for bank before. And the fact that they haven't immediately announced it means that they are going to charge for it. Here's my way of thinking with this, right? They don't like to compound bad news. They like to try and have good news and then slip bad news in potentially if it's like, you know, there. So what they were trying to do with E3 is that they knew that saying that, you know, Pokemon not being transferred was going to be bad news, even though they were acting like it was good news. They knew it was going to be bad news, so they tried to do things like slip in the thing about the Pokeball Plus during the Direct and talk little bits and pieces about new Pokemon and do this and that, and then they slipped that information in and then continued going into the you know, the actual like showing off the gameplay and stuff. It didn't fool anyone.
They're here!
Oh, under the floorboards!
Who's beneath our floorboards? Thank you, XX Dunson, for the follow. Welcome to the space beneath the floorboards.
Full of tasty boots. We deep fried them for you.
You can eat them as much as you like.
Because we don't need them, lad.
We really don't. Yeah, you know what? I'm glad about that, though. Somebody said, personally, I'm grateful they told us about that because it saved me the hassle of pre-ordering.
Honestly, yeah. Like, I've been squatting in 4th gen for like a decade, and it's like, well, that paid off.
By the way, you guys don't have to buy the game. Just don't. I would, in fact, this is the first time I've ever said this. I would suggest that you do not buy Sword and Shield. We're
Just
gonna
watch
get
us
it.
play
Yeah,
it.
we're gonna get it. We're gonna play it for the channel. You really don't need it.
Then we'd better finish this game if we're going to eventually get that one.
That's the plan. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm planning to finish this today or some other stream.
Probably not today. Well, we'll see. We'll see how far we can go.
But anyway, yeah. My main fear with home, and somebody kind of suggested something, and it's like, you know what? You're right. It compounds my fear that this is the case. Somebody pointed out that... hold on. Thank you, Deftbeck, for the follow. Welcome to the space beneath the floorboards.
I'll find a lizard to name after you.
Somebody pointed out that they didn't charge for the first month of bank. And that is true. They didn't charge for the first month of bank. They probably won't charge for the first month of home, either. You know why that scares me?
Because then you put your Pokemon in and then they get deleted when you don't pay up.
Home is a one-way street.
Well, I mean, it's supposedly a two-way for things that can get into Sword and Shield.
Well, it's a one-way street for Bank, Go, Let's Go, and all of the games that connect to it except for Sword and Shield.
And also you can trade between homes with other people, but that's not really useful if they can't go anywhere. No, that was in the...
I know. I'm saying no, it's not really useful.
Okay. Yeah, like I
agreeing
can
with you.
confirm. I checked the announcement where they talked about home. It's like, yeah, you can
It's
trade
like-
between homes.
The thing that scares me the most about that is that you're going to get a bunch of people who go, oh, the first month is free, and take their whole bank and transfer it into home without thinking and without realizing that the fact that you can transfer it into home but not back means that you are now locked into a subscription service to keep the Pokemon in there alive.
Well, there
it's
is
not
a
a
chance.
prison, it's a funeral home. Like,
There's a
it's an
chance.
old person house.
I'm gonna be optimistic that they might do a thing where it's like you get one box for free, and then it's like $5 a year to get 10 boxes. It's like, oh, okay, maybe you can keep like 10 Pokemon in it, and they'll not get deleted.
No, that's
maybe.
Okay. The way that it works for Bank is you get 10 boxes at $5 a year. That's it. That's the only option, and that's how Home's probably going to be.
Home isn't Bank. We don't know for sure. They could do all kinds of tiered subscription garbage.
I guarantee you they will not.
Okay.
It is going to be one service. It's probably going to be nearly identical, probably just a bigger version of Bank, and they might charge more for it because they know that they can. So I'm guessing that the subscription service is probably going to be about $10 a year. And what scares me the most about Bank to Home and Home not going backwards or doing anything like that is that there is a chance, there is a non-zero chance that Bank could potentially go
that's
down.
Tower.
In the what?
Yeah, this is
Oh, yeah.
Tower.
Yeah, that's Hundera.
Or, I mean, it's a pagoda, but, like, I mean, that's gotta be.
Yeah. I bet if you were to check some of these, they'd all be something. But
That
I
might be,
can't,
like, Spear Pillar?
I can't immediately recognize
That's
any
an
of them.
island.
That could be Hoenn, any part of Hoenn.
Could be Alola.
But my main issue is that, like, there is a non-zero chance that Bank will go down. Bank is tied to the 3DS servers. It's not a cloud service that is open for everything. And I don't know if people remember it, but there was a time when DS servers eventually went down, and if you own Pokemon games from the DS era, they can't connect online anymore. You can't do that. That's not a thing.
Yeah. Huh.
If Bank goes down, you can't transfer to Bank and then to Home anymore. Bank might just go down, and then never come back up. And that, if they choose to do that earlier rather than later, will force people to move all of their Pokemon from Gen 3 up to Gen 7 into Bank, and then move your Bank into Home, and then you'll be paying a subscription service for Pokemon you can't use.
Or it
that
could just
they
keep them
have
in 4th gen.
chosen to keep you to not use. Yeah, but if you're in 4th Gen, you're now locked. Once Bank goes down, they slap a giant wall between 3rd to 7th and 8th and onward. You can't pass that anymore.
Well, there's also 5th to 6th was through bank. So
yeah. Yeah. So,
so
5th to 6th, I guess, also. But that's not quite what I mean.
Yeah, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th are kind of just clustered together. And then there's an impenetrable wall. And then from 7th onward, there's another wall.
It's just...
It's no good. I could want to be optimistic. And a lot of people are optimistic. It's like, oh, well, maybe they'll add a national deck as DLC.
Masuda has done an interview where somebody asked him about that already, and he said currently there are no plans, and we do not intend to. This is a strong stance. We are putting our feet down and saying no. From now on, going forward, this is how Game Freak is going to do things. This is how Pokemon is going to work. We are going to hand select the Pokedex, and you are going to play with those Pokemon. Masuda is very strict about this. He is saying he does not want to add DLC to these games, because up until now, Pokemon's never had DLC. Pokemon's never had updates, except when they have broken something so completely that it was absolutely necessary that they update the game through online stuff. Like, the problem in X and Y, where if you saved outside of a building in Lumiose, your game file would get corrupted and you'd have to restart. That's the only thing they've ever released a patch for.
Huh, we got some trivia. Ninetales Commander says, actually, the DS server's ending was because of GameSpy. Nintendo's contract with them expired, but because GameSpy was purchased by another company, they were not allowed to carry on. So Nintendo was like, oh, never mind, then we'll end it and launch our own online service. But they didn't really add one for the
They could
DS.
still drop Bank. Bank could still fall. That's still totally and completely within the realm of possibility. And in terms of money making, it would be in Game Freak's best interest, which is what I'm scared they're going to figure out. And then they're going to go ahead and just drop fucking Bank immediately. I heard a kid was wandering around. Is it you? Are you a kid?
Nope.
I can't see the difference between people.
Nope, we're just small adults.
Fuck GameSpy, by the way.
I don't even know who they are.
Everything about this, like everything about the National Dex and Pokemon thing has just got me so riled up and so angry.
I think you're riled up enough that you're saying, no, you're wrong to things we've gotten no anything about, where it's just pure speculation.
Well, no, because we are getting interviews, we are getting information. That's the worst part about this, is that people are accusing individuals of being like, well, you don't know, you're going off of a single sentence. And it's like, no, Masuda's been doing a couple of interviews since E3. People know. There is information, and guess what? It's getting worse. Like, it gets worse and worse as time goes on. And to an extent, it's like, yeah, Masuda could turncoat immediately. He could change. And typically what he says is always just he's acting positive about the company and the decisions of the company. But at the same time, like, if they really do take a hardline stance in the sand, they draw the line, they say nothing beyond this, they don't have to change, because people will still fucking buy it. And it's just like, oh, great. So we're just rewarding laziness and awful everything, I guess, now, again.
We're being asked, it's being clarified, GameSpy was an old game matching service before Xbox Live and PSN. And we're being asked, like, do we think some people are overreacting? I think Josh overreacts a little bit. Like, again, it's just like, I just want to say, like, what we know is still very vague, and it looks bad, but I'm not willing to...
It's not as vague as you think.
I'm not willing to smack down other people's optimism for it, is the thing.
I feel that optimism gets no one anywhere. Archer, you!
What is it, Mr. Archer? You know that kid?
This is the guy, we found him earlier on in the game, but I think he's actually in other games as well, by the way.
He looks like Cyrus, but not really.
I think he's one of the grunts or one of the executives from 2nd Generation 2, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember what voice I was doing for him, so I'm just going to be really, really angry. Mm-hmm. Huh? Josh, do you know this old guy? So you're the fool and... Oh, that... So you're fool enough to get in our way. Is that it? What brave little boys.
Don't say little boys in that voice and linger like that.
Aren't you the one who are getting in our way? Blech.
Not even. Mr.
I'm gonna blow
Archer's
my
saying
voice
you're in
out.
his way, all right?
Yeah. He is in Heart Gold Soul Silver. I do remember that. Which is just a remake of Second Gen.
You want to go home in tears or what?
Calm yourself. I'll teach these children a good lesson. People have also pointed out, by the way, that Game Freak pushing into 3D was probably one of the worst choices for the company. Not just because it doesn't look as good as pixel art, because there are a lot of people like Megan who hold on to pixel art as long as they fucking can, even though
Josh
it doesn't make any
hates
sense.
me. Someday he's gonna divorce me for not liking 3D as much as Pixel.
I like pixel, that's the thing, but I know that there's a general why do you have a... Oh, wait, that's not yours. It's an auto
Oh yeah,
two
this
battle.
is Jack's.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just not here.
I was like,
That's
why
fine.
do you have a Cubone? What happened?
I don't.
Was that on our team?
No. I think it's just he caught the Cubone from the Pokemon Tower.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you, Klein. Cool. I don't have 1,000 voices though. I usually
He
wind
has
up
at least a dozen. That's pretty good.
I wind up repeating a lot of them pretty often. But I don't know. Pushing into into 3D for Game Freak was a huge issue because they didn't have 3D artists at the time, and when they hired 3D artists, they hired only about a dozen of them, and they weren't as specialized as they probably should have been, and the change really fucked with Game Freak. I've seen people point out that like they had to crush to get stuff out as fast as possible, and a lot of the just the push that they did for that kind of stuff was terrible. The timing was awful, and it turned into stuff like X and Y doesn't look as polished as it should, and one of the biggest problems is that stuff like dungeons wound up taking like the full brunt force of that we're not as specialized in this way. Because if you go back and you look, 5th gen has dungeons. Dungeons in 5th gen are actually pretty okay. They're not that bad. In fact, some of the best dungeons in the series are in 5th gen. They're interesting, they've got a lot of twists and turns and puzzles, and they're really good. And then you get to things like 6th gen, like X and Y, where it's like, why can I not? Why are we stuck here? Okay.
Because you were digging.
The game wanted to just load, I guess. You get into 6th gen, and the argument I've seen people make is, hey, there are basically no dungeons. There's a handful, and they're all very simplistic and very easy. And Game Freak has kind of been pushing that concept of like, we're trying to make things more accessible for children, completely ignoring the elephant in the room there.
That makes me mad because we were children when the first games came out and we figured it out. There are kids who learned to read by playing Pokemon.
Yeah.
Kids are smart.
So, guess what? It's a really easy argument to make if you don't have the resources to make a game good, and you don't have the specialty anymore to say we're making it for children. Because you know you're making this game for children. You've made every game up until this point for children, but you're going to say we're making it for children because it doesn't look as good, or because it's too simplistic, or this or that sort of thing. And it's a good cop-out. It's a really good cop-out. The main issue that I have with that, though, is that you get things like, do you remember in 1st gen, getting to Mewtwo was an entire dungeon with puzzles in and of itself, and when you got there, it really felt like you had, beat your way down there, you were good. And then you fight him, and it's this tense match, and it's amazing. In X and Y, Mewtwo is at the end of a literal hallway. It's a straight line, and then he's just standing at the end, and it's like, oh, okay, thanks. Cool.
Can I read from chat a little bit from Death Beck? This reminds me of the nonsensical logic that Sega used to avoid looking embarrassed by the success of Sonic Mania versus Sonic Forces, where they said Mania did best among young kids, while Forces was explicitly made for adults. I mean, not... Adults liked Forces, but not for a reason they're gonna want to admit.
Yeah.
But Mania is very much for nostalgia, and Sonic Forces was just kind of bad.
Yeah. I just... somebody said it's not even a hallway, it's almost like a dent. Yeah, basically. It's like, hey, do you want to walk, I don't know, 6 feet forward and then fight a Mewtwo? Congrats.
Adults like Sonic Forces. Asa, they could, like, mod in Grand Theft Auto characters. I've seen that. And also, adults like Forces just so they can just make their OC. But it's adults, so their OC is, we're not going to talk about it.
Gen 6 did have you find your way to Zygarde. That is true, but that puzzle was still very, very simplistic. And I think it was the most polished out of all of them. And it was probably because they hoped that they could get a Z out. And the quality of those games was so incredibly low that they were told not to worry about it and wound up being pushed into Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire instead, which took up the time that it would have been for a typical remake, but then they were also given the amount of time that it would have been for the third part of the series, and that game was still trash. It was bad compared to original third gen, which is saying something.
Third
because
gen is a disappointment
it's
in comparison
actually
to second
missing
gen.
content that the original version had. The only thing that you really add is the Delta chapter, which is good. I like Delta chapter. I thought it was a good addition. But it's mostly people standing around in rooms and talking. And the ability to fly around on Latios and Latias, which is an interesting concept, but it never showed up again. It was only there and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, cool, thanks.
We beat him. We got voices to do.
Hey, Sci-Fry. He says some super well-adjusted adults really like Sonic for reasons.
I know there's a trick that people were doing in Sonic Forces where you can put girly stuff on the boys, but you can't have a girl character have no shirt on, so people would make boys and then put like high heels on them and no shirt.
Yeah. Again.
I want to be the best there ever was, to beat all the rest. Yeah, that's my